From a teacher catching a student looking at sus images on his computer, to a teacher catching a couple doing some not-so-safe-for-work stuff in the back of the classroom, these are the craziest things teachers have caught students doing. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this first story Jeffrey. So anyways, Jeffrey was probably in 6th grade or something. And Jeffrey had a friend. And this friend, we're just going to call him Jeffrey's friend, okay? He doesn't need a name. And anyways, right, Jeffrey's friend thought it was like the most coolest, sickest, most badass thing ever for him to watch sus videos online. I don't totally know why he thought that. Maybe he thought it was like super adult or something to be like, watching the sus videos. And I also, by the way, I can't say them exactly. YouTube will be big mad if I say it exactly, but most of you guys know what I mean. Kind of entails any videos that are kind of strange. The thing is though, Jeffrey and his friends thought that Jeffrey's friend was pretty weird for this, thought that it was pretty strange for doing such.
Connor,
and that
you actually record without any pants on? That's
Hey man,
crazy, man.
Hey man, it's all natural. It's all natural. Anyways, before I was rudely interrupted. No, but anyways, right. So Jeffrey was literally would be in class. He would take out his computer and he'd be in the back of the classroom, right? So it wasn't a huge issue, but it was a huge issue, and we'll talk about that later. But he'd just take out his computer and he would just be watching these, the sus videos in the back of the class. Or Jeffrey's friend, I should clarify, not Jeffrey, the subscriber. And Jeffrey would sometimes sit next to his friend. But when he started doing this, he stopped sitting next to him as much. Because, one day, Jeffrey was just, looking over at his friend. He's like, hey, man, what are you watching? He looks over, and it's the most, disturbing thing you've ever seen. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration. But it's definitely not the thing that Jeffrey was expecting to see when he looked over. And he's like, oh, God, are you serious? And his friend's like, hey, man, I'm just very mature, man. Because I guess, in 6th grade, you think, oh, I do anything that's kind of adult or anything, not safe for work, then I am a mature gentleman. No, guys, just a little PSA. That stuff is damaging. It will destroy your brain. I hate to sound like a grandmother, but it's true. Anyways, right, so Jeffrey decided that, he just wanted, instead of paying attention in class, he would literally just watch this sus video. He just watched sus videos in class the entire time. And the thing is, he used to, watch it, occasionally in class, or he just, flip it up, which is, first of all, don't do that, okay? Don't do it in general. As a word of advice, you're better off not doing against it. It will destroy your dopamine receptors, but especially in class, man. Geez, come on now. And, so this kid would just keep going in class. You keep going and keep watching more and more of it. And eventually it got so bad that he stopped paying attention at all. Jeffrey's friend, used to be pretty good. He used to be a pretty good student. He wasn't, extremely stellar. He wasn't getting, he wasn't the number one student, but he was above average, even if only mildly. But immediately his grades fell off a cliff because he was practically not attending. I mean, physically he was attending, but mentally he was watching the sus videos. So one day, Jeffrey and his friends decided to have an intervention for Jeffrey's friend. And he sat Jeffrey's friend down, Jeffrey and his friends. I should have given this guy a name. Well, we're calling him Ben now, okay? It's too complicated for me to say Jeffrey's friends. Jeffrey's friend and then Jeffrey's friends. So anyways, Jeffrey and his friends sit Ben down. They're like, hey, man, we got to have an intervention here. We got to have a talk. And, Jeffrey's friend's or Ben's like, bro, what? What are you talking about? And Jeffrey's friend's like, bro, you're watching those videos way too much in class. And, Jeffrey's friends are all like, yeah, man, you got to chill out. Your grades are slipping. It's weird. And Ben's like, dude, just because I'm more mature than you guys and I'm just, a much more mature individual doesn't mean you guys have to be hating on me like that. Guys, just a little side note. It is not more mature to watch sus videos. Look, I'm going to sound strange because I know that everyone on the internet is always preaching, oh, it's really good. You should be able to, but that doesn't mean you should. Just general word of advice, it will fry your dopamine receptors. It will mess up your brain. It's a bad habit to get obsessed with. I'm not gonna put you on a stake and burn you at it, right? But it's just advice, right? It's not good. Chill out with it. Some people say that, like, it's not an addiction, but it is, okay? Anyways, right, so sure enough, Jeffrey's friends and Jeffrey are like, dude, like, it's weird. You're going to get caught one day. And, I mean, foreshadowing, am I right? Because sure enough, Jeffrey's like, dude, no, you guys just aren't mature like me, and you just don't get it. Stop hating. Jeffrey was completely ignoring everything that they were saying. So one day, it was a test day, right? It was a test day, and it wasn't as if Ben was going to do well anyways on this because, he'd been not paying attention in class the whole time because he'd been watching his little sus videos. But sure enough, it's the day of the test, and not only is he just unprepared, but he doesn't even plan to fully engage himself during the test. Because for the last month at this point, Ben had just been watching the sus videos in class. And when the teacher walked around and handed out the test, Ben, instead of doing the test, he pulled out his phone. And on his phone, he was literally just watching one of the sus videos on mute. So the teacher at the front of the classroom notices that Jeffrey has a phone out. And what is to be expected when a student has a phone out during an assessment? Well, if I was a teacher, I would believe, oh, the student must be cheating then, because when you take out your phone, it's access to the internet, which is probably access to answers because you're taking a test. So the teacher, instead of being like, Jeffrey, what are you doing, and calling him out in front of the entire class, the teacher took the other approach, was to silently walk up to him as to try and not disturb as many people as possible and kind of like whisper at him like, you can't have a phone out, like come with me, whatever, right? And the teacher in general, I would have said made the correct choice here because, you don't want to be, disturbing everyone in the classroom. However, he unfortunately did not make the correct choice because in so doing so, of just walking up, quietly, Jeffrey was not prepared. And the teacher walked up right next to him and was like, what are you doing on your phone? And the teacher looks down. And the teacher just looks down at Jeffrey, playing a sus video on his phone. And Jeffrey looks up at him. And Jeffrey and the teacher are just making eye contact for a second. And at this, well, not Jeffrey, sorry, Ben, my fault. And Ben and the teacher are just making eye contact. And Jeffrey looks over, the subscriber, looks over at his friend Ben, and looks over at the teacher, looking down at Ben, who has a video playing on the phone that's on his lap. And Jeffrey in his head's like, dude, Ben, this is what we meant. This is what we meant when we said you gotta stop. This is literally what we meant, dude. This is what we meant. So yeah, the teacher is like, instead of like, it's funny, because like the teacher, instead of like, I don't know, saying, oh, come with me, we're catching you for cheating or whatever. Because I know in previous stories, there have been schools that have been policies, and the subscribers who've submitted them, where truly if a student has any form of electronics out, no matter if they're not doing anything on them, they're still like, it's cheating or whatever, because who knows. But this school wasn't as strict. So when the teacher realized that it was just a really awkward situation and he wasn't actually cheating on the exam, he was simply watching something maybe he shouldn't be watching in class, the teacher's like, Jeff, Ben, put that away, okay? And Ben just looks so embarrassed. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry. I've closed his phone, puts it in his pocket. But here's the thing. Here's where things went really bad. When Ben closed his phone, he didn't, oh my God. This is really bad. So you know how the volume button, you know how the lock screen button and the volume button are like either sides of the phone? I know for sure I've definitely, instead of hitting the volume button, I've hit the power button before, especially in trying to take screenshots. I've like turned off my phone. It's annoying. So Jeffrey, because in his panic, maybe if you weren't in a panic, you wouldn't have made the same mistake. But in Jeffrey's panic, right, he quickly hits his volume button extremely hard to try and shut off his phone quickly. And in so doing so, he turns the volume up from mute to full blast. And if you guys are aware, sus videos have very sus audios. It's just the nature of them being sus videos, right? So the entire class looks around as this very loud sound is coming from Jeffrey's phone. Not Jeffrey's phone, sorry, Ben's phone. And if Ben was embarrassed before, man, Ben was even more embarrassed now. Because at this point, he got the teacher who caught him, and now the entire class knows exactly what Ben was doing during a test. So it's 6th grade, so the entire class bursts out laughing. Of course they would. And I think I might even laugh a little bit if someone got caught doing that now and I'm in college. Like, that's timeless classic humor, let's be real. And sure enough, he puts his phone away, and the teacher's like, class, pay attention, you have an exam, go back to your exam. Teacher was really trying to come for Ben's defense here because he felt bad. And from that point on, Ben never watched that stuff again in class. I can't necessarily say what he did out of class, but thankfully, he was done with that stuff in class because, experience can sometimes be getting a lesson taught to you is sometimes better than sometimes you'll learn better through experience, even if the experience is terrible like this. Now, this next story is actually insane, and personally, I can't imagine how the teacher felt here. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Adonis. It's because it's a sick name. That's the name we're using. So anyways, right, Adonis was in school, and Adonis was a good student. He's very studious. Okay, I just said good student. He was studious, kind of synonyms of each other, but whatever. He's a good student. He was always on time. He was, friendly, good kid, whatever. And there were two kids in his class that used to be really good. Like, they used to be, okay, I don't want to, say that if you're attentive and paying attention in the front of the class that you're a good kid, and if you sit in the back, you're a bad kid. That's not true. I actually enjoy sitting in the back of the class, and I think I'm pretty attentive and I'm a good student enough, okay? I'm not a bad student. Good enough, right? I like the back of the class. But there was two kids. We're just going to say the guy and the girl. And they were, pretty solid students. They were always paying attention. They were engaged in the class. And that is until they got romantically involved with each other. And as soon as that happened, immediately they just started first of all, they started sitting next to each other, and they would whisper really, annoying stuff, like, I love you, my baby. But this is the really gross couple stuff that, really infuriates me. I don't know why it makes me so mad. It's just icky, man. It's icky when you're like, I love you, sugar. But it just gives me the icks, man. I don't know how else to say it. And so the teacher would keep on penalizing them for interrupting the class, as he should, because if my class experience is being interrupted by, oh, baby, I love you so much. This 2-day anniversary is really reminding me of how, amazing we are. Like, shut up, please. Good. Anyways, so eventually they moved to the back of the class so that they could continue to be, talking with each other and romantic and holding hands in class and stuff like that. This is kind of a little bit annoying, but beyond me. You can do what you want. It's your life, man. That's all I'm going to say. It's your life. It's up to you. Your choices. And sure enough, right, let's just say that they started to get a little bit more, courageous and push the boundaries a little bit more every single day in class. So one day, they pushed the boundaries far enough that they actually tried making out in class, which sounds ridiculous because you might be thinking of a smaller classroom and you might be thinking of your classroom and you're probably thinking not a shot that they could get away with it. However, this was a really big classroom. And also, by the way it was structured, there was curvature at the end of the classroom where you could kind of get away with sneaking behind. There was kind of a place where you could kind of sneak behind out of view of the teacher. So they would go back there in the middle of class, and I truly do believe that they got a bit of a thrill doing stuff in the classroom, because you might be thinking, oh man, just wait till you get back. And I 100% agree with you. Freshmen at my college, their PDA is ridiculous. I don't care. Actually, I do care because it's weird and annoying. I've complained about this a little bit too frequently in my videos. I apologize. But anyways, so I think part of it, the reason why they were trying to not be super safe with getting caught or whatever, is because they enjoyed the thrill of doing it in places you shouldn't be doing. It's a real thing that happens, whatever. But one day, they decided to take it a little bit too far. They didn't go they didn't go all the way, right? For those who know, they didn't go that crazy. But let's just say that, some pants were not on, or maybe they were on, but it went beyond. I'm not even going to elaborate. I'm just going to assume it's something worse than making out, but not as bad as, creating a stork baby or whatever you want to say. So they decided to just up the bar a little bit too much. And luck was not on their side, even though I think this was kind of, what happens when you play risky games, you sometimes lose and then the risks come true. It's part of risk analysis right there, and they were not doing a good job. Because sure enough, one day, Adonis is in class, and he is aware what these kids do in the back of the classroom. He's not blind and incompetent, but he also doesn't really care because they're back there and they're doing their thing and it doesn't really interrupt what he's doing. But they just go a little bit too far this day. And they go a little bit too far, and they kind of, they're just not being, I think they just got way too confident. Because the teacher, I did say there was a bit of curvature in the classroom. You couldn't hide all the way behind, like, the corner. You couldn't get all the way out of the side of the teacher. You were always a little bit inside of the teacher. No, okay. I just said you were always a little bit inside of the teacher. No, that's not what I'm saying. Oh, God. Don't comment in the comment section. God, okay. Anyways. So this day, they went a little bit too far. And they were accidentally knocked something over. Like, they literally knocked something off their desk. So Adonis, the whole class, including the teacher, their attention was drawn to the back of the classroom. These kids were in the middle of doing something a little bit too extreme. A little bit too extreme. By a little bit, I mean, the hell are you doing that in the classroom, dude? And sure enough, the teacher basically goes up into a freaking uproar. He's like, in my class, not on my class, like, not on my watch now. And the teacher starts storming back there. So immediately, like, kid, like, the guy's like pulling up his pants real quick, trying to get his belt on, doing all that kind of stuff, right? And the teacher's running back there, and the girl starts freaking out. She's like, all this kind of stuff, right? The teacher looks at them, says, both of you, points at both of them, and says, you two, stand up. So they both get up, and he says, walk, and they walk single file to the front of the class, right? And he eventually opens up the door, and they're about to walk out, and he says, wait 1 second. And they're standing in front of the entire class, completely humiliated at this point, I would imagine. And the teacher's like, look out there. And he points to all the classmates. He's like, these are the people's time that you have wasted. And oh God, it is the worst. Adonis is cringing so hard right now. And he's like, these are the faces of the education you've sucked out of their day today. Don't forget. He's like, okay, go off to the principal's office. I'll send up a note. They'll know what you did. This is the walk of shame, but to a whole new definition. And let's just say that Adonis tried to pay attention for the rest of the class, and the rest of the class maybe tried to pay attention, or maybe they just gave in to the fact that the craziest thing on earth just happened. But no, they gave in to the fact that the craziest thing on earth just happened, and that was the rest of the class was completely disheveled. Those kids got 3 days of suspension or whatever, and 3 days later they came back in class, and it was the most awkward. They came in, they made eye contact with the teacher. The teacher's like, welcome back. And they're like, thanks. And they both sat in the front of the class away from each other this time. And, yeah. Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just click